comes to mind about the kind of person and even journalist Burr was?
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about him ever since I heard the news today, and like a flood of memories has come back. So I apologize if I get a little emotional, but I remember I had been working at Channel 5 just a brief time before he came back. And it was a big deal. Burr's coming back, Burr's coming back. And I just knew this big veteran journalist was coming back to join us. And I was a little intimidated by the thought of him. And he started working at the station, and he was pretty quiet and serious all the time. And I remember he was kind of getting grumpy about something. And I just turned to him one day, matter of factly, and said, "You're kind of a curmudgeon, aren't you?" And he looked at me, shot me this look, and I thought, oh no. And he said, "That's the same thing my wife says." And after that, we were just fast friends, right? It just, we we became like family, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously we were coworkers, but back then our big group was almost a family, and I treasure that time. I learned so much from him. He, as a journalist, was always the consummate professional. You know, he wanted both sides of the story. He wanted the facts. He insisted on perfection and everything.
How did he help you improve or mentor your career since this was your first job out of school?
Probably most by osmosis. He wasn't really one who would always just come to you and say, "Hey, you did that wrong," or "You could do this better." I think I learned a lot from watching him. And I was always in admiration of him. He was brilliant. I mean, he was formally educated. He had great education, just a brilliant man and very smart. And like I said, a unique combination of traits. He was serious and professional, but at the same time, he had that little feistiness about him, and he was just so funny. I mean, dry sense of humor that could sort of slay you. He would get as excited about a good news story as he would about Lucy going to make veal that night. He just like that, almost like boyhood glint in his eye, that he loved life and loved what we did for a living. He, like all of us, loved that aspect of live television that could get a little out of control, and your job was to anchor it. And he was brilliant at it. He was very calm under pressure, and a lot of fun, and just a good human being.
Is this one of those where the old saying is he came from a mold and then they broke the mold?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it, Daren Bobb. There are few gentlemen like that remaining. The consummate professional who was also just the charmer. I mean, what a flirt. What a charmer. He could talk his way into and out of pretty much any situation. I think maybe that's why he got so many good interviews.
What do you remember most about Burr and his integrity and how he helped the community? What goes through your mind when you think back on those days?
I have a perhaps unusual answer to that because, as you say, Burr had great integrity. He had terrific seriousness as a journalist, as a broadcaster. But his unusual quality as news director and chief anchor was he also understood that oftentimes news is terribly depressing, and therefore it's nice to have humor on the air when appropriate. So the other anchors and myself, he was the straight man curmudgeon, who. But you knew that you knew that he liked it. He was enjoying it, and obviously we did this at appropriate times. You don't do this for severe weather or anything like that. But I just a case in point. I had these animations like the dancing pigs. I suspect a lot of news directors would never have allowed that on the air because they get all kind of like oh, it's unprofessional, it's too we're all hoity-toity. Burr was down home, and he knew that people enjoyed that, and of course we only use that during when appropriate. So yeah, that's the main thing is he was a great curmudgeon-y straight man, and at times when and allowing humor at times when I think the community needed a little humor.
The way he handled himself, I know, you know, when we all work together, it just seems like he never got flustered or nothing seemed to bother him.
Oh, that was a key. That was definitely a key. And you know, when you had the other anchors who during lighter times would clown around back and forth and with zingers and this and that. And I remember I once threw a bunch of autumn leaves up in the air, you know, and there he was. He was just like, you know, I tell you, he did give the classic kind of straight man look, sort of like that says, do you pity me, folks, that I have to work with these people, with these characters, you know? and then he just move on, you know, yeah.
Did he influence you in any way that helped with what you did here at Channel 5?
Well, I think he gave me freedom to do what I wanted to do. And I'm not saying my judgment was, you know, was correct all the time, but I think that was the main thing is he was a calm, steady presence and an authority in the newsroom. Yet at the same time, I don't recall him ever, like, you know, saying, you know, coming over and saying, you know, Jay, I think that was a little bit over the top, and really, you know, you should just kind of, you know, ease it down or anything like this. It was just kind of he was a steady hand.
I think the one thing about Burr is that stands out to me is he made me a better person and a better journalist. And I think everyone that ever worked with him would probably say the same thing, because he did reach out and he helped us all grow. I was in my 20s when I started at 5, and he was always kind to me, but firm and fair, which always doesn't happen in this business. So I adored him, and he was hilarious. And I don't know that people at home saw that, but some of the best times of my life was spent with Bur Edson because of just his kindness and his professionalism, and learned a lot. I think he was a true newsman, and people wanted that and respected him because he was fair in his reporting. And I think that's what made him stand out. He was just genuine, but he covered the story and the facts and was fair and was neutral in stories, but really one of the best writers I've ever seen. For the community, I think people just thought of him as kind of a god, like, you know, and to us he was, you know, too, but anytime he walked in a room, he had just professionalism, but he was on air so long. He was the guy people turned on because they trusted him. He made us all better. Anybody that worked with him, for him, he made us all better. He was an amazing news director. He would let you take a story and go with it. But if there was something that needed correcting, he was gentle in how he told you, maybe this would be a better way to do it. And it just made us all better.
In the 90s, Burr actually judged one of my science fair projects about tornadoes. And he remembered me years later when I reached out to Jay Hilgartner, and Jay said, let me put you in touch with the news director. So I got in touch with Burr, and Burr invited me in, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this guy's he's a newsman. It's a newsman, you know, a living legend. So I come in, and Burr's like, yeah, it doesn't pay anything, really. You do weekends, part-time. I'm like, yes, I'll take it, you know? So that's where I started. Burr's pretty much responsible for my whole TV career. He's the one that launched it. I think Burr was always just stuck to the facts and stuck to the news and wanted to put a good story out that really told the story of the community in a full rounded way. My favorite memory though, and you probably remember this, it was when he did that tax story when he took a shower at work, and it was in that old office where the news director had, and it was like waist up, and it was Burr like doing soap and talking about how taxes were so expensive, you know, with water and sewer and everything. And I was like, wow, you can do that? I mean, I can do all kinds of stuff. So, but yeah, he was a great news director. he's definitely one of a kind. I missed him all throughout my career because he was just a news director that had common sense. So he knew what news was, and news was news. It wasn't fluff. It wasn't just soft stories or softballs. It was telling the story of the community in a way that made sense for everybody that watched. And so he was definitely one of a kind. I hated it when he left. Matter of fact, he was at my wedding and he got us wine glasses, and I still have the wine glasses. I used them for Thanksgiving. So, and every time we cheers to Bur and Lucy. So to Bur and Lucy, it's a great family, great people. Man, what a loss to lose Bur.